I was fired for being too ambitious, but then I found my boss's resume with my work on it. I used to believe in meritocracy, in the idea that if you just worked hard enough, stayed late enough, said yes more than no, someone would eventually notice. Someone would reward you. My name is Alina Ross, and I was raised in a small, wind-swept town in Oregon where ambition was treated like a virus, something that spread fast and left you lonely. My parents were both high school teachers, content with routine and small victories. But I wasn't. Even as a teenager, I used to lie in bed at night and whisper my goals out loud. One day I'll have an apartment with glass windows, a wardrobe full of heels, and my name on an office door. I didn't want fame. I didn't want millions. I wanted respect. After graduating top of my class in marketing and media strategy, I moved to Los Angeles with a single suitcase and $800 in my bank account. My first job interview was at Collister & Rowe, a sleek public relations firm known for making careers and crushing egos. Their slogan was, "We build legends." I remember standing in the lobby that first day, surrounded by high heels, expensive perfumes, and glass walls that showed off awards like hunting trophies. I knew I had to be there. And somehow, I got in, as an unpaid intern. I didn't complain. I hustled. I made coffee runs, stayed late to help whoever needed it, learned how to read between the lines of emails, how to respond like a senior even when I was just a rookie. I offered ideas during team meetings, most of them ignored, until one finally landed and the client loved it. Suddenly, people looked at me differently. Within a year, I was promoted to junior associate, then associate manager. And by the time I was 25, I had a small team of interns under me. I was earning enough to upgrade my tiny studio apartment to a one-bedroom, and I treated myself to my first pair of Louboutins, just to remind myself how far I'd come. But in the shadows of my rise was a woman who controlled every string that mattered. Vivian Stroud. She wasn't just my boss, she was the boss, executive creative director. Always dressed in monochrome suits that screamed power, and a voice that could freeze the air. Vivian didn't mentor. She commanded, and I admired her. Deeply, at first. She had carved her place in a male-dominated industry. She was respected, feared, and endlessly elegant. I thought, if I play my cards right, I could be her one day. Vivian didn't look at me much during my early days. But when I started getting recognition, she pulled me closer. She'd call me into her office and say things like, "Alina, you have potential, but don't burn too hot. This world eats ambition for breakfast." Still, she assigned me bigger projects. But never with full credit. I did the research. She presented the slides. I built the campaign. She signed her name. I stayed till midnight. She left by 6. I told myself this was temporary. That I was paying my dues. That women like her paved the road for women like me, and I owed her my patience. Then came the holy grail of accounts. Allure, an international cosmetics brand launching an eco-conscious luxury line. The company wanted something fresh, viral, youthful, a campaign that would go beyond billboards and TV ads. They wanted soul, authenticity, a modern voice. Vivian said in the meeting, loud enough for the board to hear, "I think we let Alina take the reins on this one. She's exactly the voice they're looking for." I couldn't breathe for a second. This was it. For the next 2 months, I disappeared into the work. I barely saw my friends. I skipped family Zoom calls. I stayed in the office long after the janitors left. I tested visuals, brainstormed slogans, pitched mock ads to the team, wrote hundreds of taglines until I found the one that made the whole room fall silent. Luxury without guilt, Allure. Vivian smiled. "That's brilliant." On pitch day, she stood at the front with flawless makeup and her usual poise. She presented the campaign like she had birthed it herself. I sat in the back with a pen between my fingers, silently mouthing each point before she said it, because I had written every single word. The client clapped. Contracts were signed. Bonuses were mentioned. I felt like I was floating. That night, I opened a bottle of cheap champagne at home and toasted my reflection in the mirror. "This is just the beginning," I whispered. But it wasn't. 3 weeks later, I was called into HR. A man I barely knew looked me dead in the eyes and said, "We're letting you go." I thought it was a joke. "Why?" I asked, my voice trembling. He glanced at the file. "Officially, it's a restructuring. Unofficially, some of your team members have said you're difficult to work with, too intense, too ambitious." I blinked. "Who said that?" He didn't answer. He just pushed a folder toward me. Vivian signed off on it. I walked out of that building in the same dress I wore during the Allure pitch. My badge had been taken. My email deleted. My future shredded. I sat in my car and screamed until I had no voice. I had built everything from scratch. Worked harder than anyone. Been loyal. Obedient. Smart. But I had flown too close to the sun, and Vivian had melted my wings. And that's when something inside me snapped. I wish I could say I bounced back. But the truth is, I spiraled. The day after I got fired, I sat on my couch in the same clothes, staring at my phone, waiting for someone, anyone, from the office to text me. To say, "This is a mistake," or "I'm so sorry," or even, "We miss you." But silence was all I got. Vivian had moved on. The company had moved on. And I was disposable. I stayed in my apartment for days. Didn't open the curtains. Barely ate. I kept repeating that HR meeting in my head like a nightmare on loop. Too ambitious. Difficult to work with. What did that even mean? Was working late and doing extra not what they wanted? Or was it only a problem when I did it? A week passed. Then another. And then I saw it, a LinkedIn post from Vivian. It said, "Thrilled to share our groundbreaking Allure campaign is live. Huge success already. Thank you to my incredible team for trusting my vision." My vision. My vision? There was no team, there was just me. She didn't even tag me. I felt like I had been slapped. The post had thousands of likes. Vivian had uploaded clips from the pitch, campaign photos, brand trailers, every piece I had poured my soul into. All launched, all successful, and all under her name. I clicked through the comments. "Genius work, Vivian. Only you could have pulled this off. Powerhouse woman leadership in action." That last one nearly made me gag. Leadership? She had stolen my blood, sweat, and ideas and turned them into trophies on her shelf. My hands shook with rage. That same night, I opened my laptop and started rebuilding my resume. Not for job applications, but for something deeper, proof. I listed every campaign I had worked on, every slide I had designed, every headline I had written. I went through old emails, file backups, pitch decks. I created a master document labeled Vivian Unfiltered. And then came the twist. While organizing my cloud folders, I noticed something odd. A shared Google Drive link from a month ago, one I didn't remember opening. It had been sent during the Allure project. The email was from Vivian's assistant, Mark. For Vivian's backup pitch copy, confidential. I clicked it. My heart nearly stopped. Inside was a PDF titled Vivian Stroud Personal Portfolio and Career Achievements. It was her resume, a multi-page document, clean, glossy, sleek. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. The first page had her photo and quote, "Great leadership isn't about doing everything, it's about knowing what to take credit for." The irony would have been funny if it weren't gutting. I scrolled down, and then froze. Under the campaign achievements section, there it was. Led creative direction and strategy for LORE's Luxury Without Guilt campaign. My exact headline. She had even listed other campaigns I had created as her own, including one from last year that won a regional award. Projects she hadn't even been present for. And under skills, she had even listed content narrative psychology, a term I had coined in one of my pitches. It was like reading my own biography, under someone else's name. I felt sick. Betrayed didn't even begin to cover it. Vivian hadn't just fired me. She had erased me. My rage turned cold, the kind of fury that simmers beneath your skin like poison. She hadn't just cut me out of a job. She had cut me out of my own life's work. And she was using it to climb higher. As I scrolled through the document, I noticed one final thing that chilled me to the bone. She had uploaded this resume to a recruiting platform, which meant she was applying somewhere else. That's when the seed of revenge was planted. Not emotional, not loud, just a quiet, sharp decision in the back of my mind. If she wanted to steal my future, I'd destroy hers. But I had to be smart, careful, strategic. Vivian had the name, the face, the charm. But I had something more powerful now. The truth. And I was about to use it in the most devastating way possible. They say grief comes in stages. Mine didn't. Mine came as a fusion, rage, sorrow, bitterness, and a strange kind of clarity, all hitting me at once. For 2 nights after discovering Vivian's resume, I couldn't sleep. I'd close my eyes and see her on stage, smiling in front of an audience, accepting awards for things I created. I'd see my name erased, my ideas distorted, my future stolen. And then, one question lodged itself in my brain. What if she does it again? What if the next job she applies for lands her a global VP position? What if she takes my Allure campaign to Europe and repackages it, selling it as her genius? What if she gets rich off of me? No, that wasn't going to happen. I didn't want to sue. Lawsuits are public, messy, and expensive, and she would paint me as the bitter ex-employee. No one wins those battles clean. I didn't want to beg for my job back either. I had more pride than that. I wanted something better. I wanted her to feel the slow unraveling. The same silent destruction she gave me, just colder, cleaner, deeper. So, I started planning. Step 1. Collect evidence. First, I printed out her resume, multiple copies, and highlighted every single section that matched my work. I annotated them with dates, timestamps, client emails, internal presentations, anything that proved authorship. I found old Slack messages where I had brainstormed campaign taglines. I had emails from creative directors complimenting me for the Allure pitch structure. I even had the original draft of the tagline, "Luxury Without Guilt," written in my journal, dated 3 weeks before the official pitch. Next, I created a digital portfolio of my own. For the first time ever, I put my name on everything I had done, with proper backups, metadata, and client feedback. I made it sleek, modern, and filled with passion. And then, I did the unthinkable. Step 2. Infiltrate her new ambition. Using the recruiter platform she had uploaded her resume to, I made a fake recruiter profile. I named the fake agency Sable Connect Executive Placements and used a burner email. Within 3 days of going live, Vivian applied for a new job. I know this because she submitted her resume to my fake recruiter profile. She didn't even recognize the domain. Arrogance blinds you, I suppose. As Morgan Vance, the fictional recruiter, I sent her a message. "Hi Vivian, thank you for your impressive application. We'd love to move forward to executive review. Could you please send us supporting material for your claims? Specifically, any proof of authorship or leadership in campaigns mentioned on your resume?" She replied 2 hours later. Of course. Many of these were collaborative efforts, so attribution is often collective, but I'll provide what I can. The next day, she uploaded slides, all of them based on my original decks, but stripped of my name and photoshopped slightly. That was all I needed. Proof that she was knowingly claiming ownership of work she didn't create. Step 3. Burn her bridge, quietly. The job she was applying for? A global brand called Repaid Media Group with offices in New York, Berlin, and Dubai. They were seeking a creative director for their luxury brand division. A perfect fit for Vivian if she weren't a thief. So I did what Vivian never expected. I sent an anonymous tip to Ravebrooke's hiring team from a new encrypted email account. Attached. Her resume. My proof. A timeline. Metadata links. Screenshots. The subject line? Due diligence on Vivian Stroud, intellectual theft concerns. No threats. No slander. Just pure, clinical truth. I didn't know if they'd believe me. I didn't know if they'd care. But I knew something had been set in motion. Step 4. Let the fall begin. 1 week later, I got my answer. I was scrolling LinkedIn, half nervous, half thrilled. I hadn't heard from Vivian in days, no updates, no humble brag posts. And then I saw it. Ravebrook posted a press release. We have concluded our search for creative director and will announce our final hire next quarter. We thank all candidates for their interest. And just a few hours later, Vivian's LinkedIn status quietly changed to open to work. No celebration, no new role, no flashy title. Just silence. Then came the ripple. Another anonymous tip, this time sent to Allure's marketing board. I included a detailed note asking, "Are you aware that your campaign was created by someone who no longer works at Collister and Rowe?" Attached is the real author's portfolio and timeline of events. I didn't need Allure to respond. All I needed was doubt. If even one executive raised an eyebrow, if even one internal review began, Vivian's illusion would start to crack. Final step. Take back my voice. With my full digital portfolio built, I started applying for new jobs. But this time, I included the Allure campaign as my top credit with documented proof. When interviewers asked, "Why did you leave Collister and Rowe?" I didn't go into drama. I simply said, "My contributions were uncredited, and I believe in owning my work." Some recruiters smiled. Some nodded with understanding. Some leaned in and whispered, "That happens more often than you think." Within a month, I landed a better role at a rival agency, ironically, one Vivian once turned down. I didn't just rebuild my career. I built it stronger, with fireproof walls and my name on every single blueprint. Still, I didn't gloat. I didn't call her. But sometimes, I'd see her name pop up in industry newsletters, mentioned less and less, fading into professional obscurity. And I'd smile. Because I hadn't screamed. I hadn't sued. I hadn't begged. I had simply exposed the truth. And nothing ruins a liar like the truth. Some people think revenge is fire, loud, wild, uncontrollable. But mine was ice. It moved slowly. It cracked the surface. And when it finally shattered, it echoed for miles. Months had passed since I was fired. Since I found Vivian's resume. Since I exposed her lies to Ravebrook and Allure. I'd rebuilt my career, yes, but one thing still kept me up at night. She still had her position at Collister and Rowe. Despite the failed job switch and the growing rumors in the industry, Vivian hadn't fallen completely, not yet. She was holding on, clutching her title like armor, pretending nothing had happened. I could see it in her social media. Less frequent posts, no mentions of Allure anymore, but still flaunting curated snapshots of her life. But then, one morning, while scrolling through a PR industry forum, I saw something that made my heart stop. Collister and Rowe announces speaker for upcoming Women in Leadership Gala. Vivian Stroud to keynote on integrity in branding. Integrity. In branding. I stared at the screen for a long time. The gala was going to be held in LA. Hundreds of professionals, journalists, and C-suite executives would attend. It would be televised and streamed online, and Vivian was going to stand on that stage, wearing another flawless outfit, selling lies wrapped in eloquence. I closed my laptop slowly. This wasn't just an opportunity. This was poetic. Planning the fall, publicly this time. I reached out to an old friend from my intern days, Sophie, who now worked with the events AV team. We hadn't spoken in years, but I took a chance. I told her everything, not dramatically, but honestly. I showed her the documents, the timeline, even the resume. She listened quietly. And then she said something I'll never forget. I always wondered how she rose so fast. I'm in. She got me a technician's badge. I was going to be inside the building on the night of the gala, not as a guest, but backstage. And I had one goal. Make her lie unravel in front of everyone who ever clapped for her. The stage is set. The night of the gala was pristine, gold banners, champagne trays, glamorous dresses, and egos stacked like Jenga towers. I slipped in wearing all black, a staff badge clipped to my hip, a headset feeding me audio from the stage. I kept my head down and focused. Vivian arrived like royalty. a cream suit, hair slicked into a perfect bun. Her assistant hovered around her, fixing minor creases and whispering about lighting and applause cues. I stayed hidden behind the stage curtain, watching her through the slits. She didn't know I was there. Not yet. At 8:17 p.m., she was introduced. Please welcome our keynote speaker, a leader in creative strategy and a role model for women in business, Vivian Stroud. Thunderous applause. She walked on stage with practiced grace, nodded confidently at the audience, and began. Tonight, I want to talk about ownership, the power of building your own voice, and never letting others take credit for your work. I almost laughed out loud, but instead, I opened my laptop and ran the pre-programmed script I had loaded into the AV system, something I had built with Sophie over the last 2 weeks. She had told me, "Give me the file, and I'll sync it to the main screen behind her. Just say the word." As Vivian continued, the screen behind her was meant to display a slide titled, Vision, Voice, Value. But instead, at 8:21 p.m., it flickered. Then shifted. A new slide appeared. White text on black. Who really built the Allure campaign? The crowd murmured. Vivian turned, confused. There must be some. Before she could finish, the next slide loaded. A photo of my original campaign draft appeared, marked Alina Ross, initial concept, February 2024. Slide after slide rolled. The headline I had written, Luxury Without Guilt. My presentation notes. My email threads with the client. My Slack messages timestamped before Vivian ever touched the file. The room fell silent. And then, a final video played. My voice. Calm. Controlled. This campaign was built with love, late nights, and no credit. I was fired for being too ambitious, but ambition wasn't the threat. Truth was. Gasps filled the air. Vivian stood frozen, pale, exposed. Someone in the audience shouted, "Is this true?" The host rushed on stage. Security followed. Whispers buzzed like bees in the audience. Vivian tried to speak. This is sabotage. But the proof was already there. All of it. Live streamed. Recorded. Shared. Vivian Stroud's empire of illusions had crumbled. Aftermath. By the next morning, the video had gone viral. PR industry blogs picked it up immediately. Top creative director exposed in on stage resume theft. The fall of Vivian Stroud, ambition or plagiarism? Alina Ross trends as symbol of creative ownership. Vivian resigned from Collister and Rowe within 48 hours. But I didn't stop there. I was invited to speak on a podcast soon after, not as a victim, but as a strategist. I talked about the importance of attribution in creative industries and how easily young professionals are erased. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about legacy. Mine. In the weeks that followed the gala, my name finally meant something. I wasn't just the girl who got fired. I was being invited to panels, workshops, even asked to mentor interns. People sent me messages from around the world. Thank you for standing up for yourself. You're the reason I'm fighting for credit at my agency. I was you once. You gave me hope. And yet, something still haunted me. Not Vivian. She had vanished from the industry like a storm that had blown itself out. No LinkedIn updates. No new ventures. Rumor had it she moved back to Chicago, maybe changed her name. But it wasn't her that kept me up at night. It was one file. One file from the Vivian, unfiltered folder I had built months ago. Back when I found her resume, I had downloaded everything, documents, portfolios, drafts. One of them was labeled Client Archive Confidential. I had opened it once and skimmed through, thinking it was old material. But after the gala, something told me to look again. So, I did. And buried 3 folders deep, I found something that made my blood run cold. It was a series of screenshots from Slack, dated 6 months before I was fired. Messages between Vivian and another executive. His name was blacked out, but the initials were there. JM. And in one of those messages, Vivian had written, "Alina's work is strong, but she's getting too visible. If we're planning the restructure next quarter, She has to go, or she'll take the spotlight. The reply? Agreed. Let her run the Allure campaign, then phase her out. We'll retain the assets under your name for continuity. Assets. I was an asset to be retained and discarded. The betrayal hadn't started with just jealousy. It was planned. Before I ever walked into that pitch room. Before I gave my heart and soul to that campaign. And suddenly, it all made sense. The HR phrasing, the vague accusations, the coordinated silence from colleagues. It wasn't just Vivian's ego. It was corporate conspiracy. I wasn't just fired. I was strategically erased. But here's the real twist. That executive with the initials JM? I cross-referenced his email signature from an old company-wide message I had archived. His name was Jonathan Matson, the current CEO of Collister and Rowe. The same man who had once shaken my hand in the elevator and said, "Young minds like yours will carry this place forward someday." He had signed off on my erasure. Vivian was the weapon, but he was the hand pulling the trigger. And suddenly, I wasn't done anymore. Epilogue, the real ending. 6 months later, I launched my own creative firm, Ross and Rising. We hired ex-interns, uncredited freelancers, and designers who had once been silenced. We didn't just build campaigns, we built careers. With credit, with integrity, with contracts that protected creators. Our first major client? Allure. Their head of marketing had called me personally, said, "We were in the dark. We want to work with the woman who actually built us." I said yes on one condition. Full ownership. No intermediaries. No Collister and Rowe. They agreed. And as our first campaign launched, with my team, my name, and my story front and center, I got an email from an unknown address. The subject line was, "You weren't supposed to find that." No message. No name. Just one attachment, a screenshot of a resignation letter. From Jonathan Matson. Turns out, the truth doesn't just burn bridges. It levels empires. And this time, I was the one holding the match.